Alrighty. Well, here we are to the Ask Me Anything session. For anybody watching the recording, we have a huge turnout. Daphne's all by herself, so we have a lovely private session. And I think I'm sort of a bit undecided whether I should sort of go through, because I've noted down the questions that people have left when they're registered. And I think I might actually start covering or answering a few of those questions, and then we just have a conversation and see where it takes us. There's actually, I want to start with one question that was about where the inspiration for the Facebook group came from. And I just want to sort of quickly answer that. It was pretty much, the idea was to offer a community of support that I wish I'd had when I first started. Because when I started, like, there was pretty much nobody that I felt comfortable enough to ask anything. And because I sort of started and I had no idea, I had never run a business, I hadn't even sewn professionally at all. And so it was basically a hobby into a business, and it sounded like a good idea, and I just went for it, which was probably a good thing, because had I known what's in store, I probably wouldn't have done it. I probably would have, thought, no, like, life's easier, you know, just to stay where you are. So kind of ignorance is sometimes a good thing, because, you could probably talk yourself out of it if you really know what's all the challenges that actually come up. And I had basically one big challenge, and that was that I was sort of too nice for my clients, and too nice in a sense that I had real trouble saying no. And that's not something that was new for the sewing business. It was just something that had never caused the problem. Because if you work in a corporate job, then it's your job description that protects you from what, you know, then it's kind of clear what you're supposed to do and what you aren't, and what falls into your area of things to do or doesn't. And then you've got the corporate structure and colleagues and the boss. You have this whole environment to sort of hide behind. And if you're sort of a bit of a pushover, that doesn't really matter. And I was lucky enough to always have colleagues who wouldn't take advantage of that. And then I'd always lived in countries where nobody would go out and take advantage of that. Like in Germany, people won't kind of push you. And you imagine in Australia, they didn't either. And then I lived in the UK, and people just won't ask things that are sort of unreasonable, right? And then I came to Spain, and I learned that people don't hesitate at all to ask for what they want, right? And they don't care if that's kind of comfortable for you. And I had people asking, I'll have a performance at a theater on Sunday evening. I need you to bring that dress up there, because I couldn't be asked to come to your place. And so clearly demonstrating that they value their own time way more than they value mine. And I sort of felt that I couldn't say no. It was a kind of a way of misunderstanding what customer service is. And then it started, like, especially also in the beginning, when you have one or two clients, that's not a problem. You know, if you know that she's got a couple of kids and it's a bit difficult for her to come to organize things so that she can come to my place. So if I can do a favor and take the stuff somewhere where it's more convenient for her, then I was more than happy to do it. The problem was, she would then pass on my number to somebody else and say, hey, you just tell her to come wherever and she'll do it. And the next one would actually expect you to do this sort of delivery service, or to be available at weird hours. And some would ring like really early because they've got kids to take to school. So they ring up at 8 in the morning. Others ring you up past midnight when they walk out of the tableau, when they finish working and think of their dresses. And it was that mixture of misunderstanding what customer service meant, and also what I thought would happen, the consequences I imagined when that I would have to face if I said no. If someone says, oh, I need you to do this, and I'd say no, then I thought she'd get upset. And then if she's upset, then she won't order again. And then if she won't order again, that means another small town, she'll also tell everybody else about it. And then nobody's going to order anything again. And basically, I'm hungry in the street, right? So, and if you think that, then like saying no is really kind of difficult. And it took me really getting to the point of like total burnout, total exhaustion, total like, you ask me in the street, hey, how are you going? And I burst into tears. It was like really kind of face down in the dirt. And that was the point where I then thought, don't really care anymore. Like if this is what that is, I don't want it. And that's when I started to say no and learned that actually the whole chain of consequences I had made up in my head and wasn't actually true. And that's when things sort of started to turn around, and where I thought, if anybody else is out there who's either not sure how to start or who started and finds it more stressful and more exhausting and less rewarding than they expected, then, I want to help them turn this into something that's fun and profitable. And so on, basically the Facebook group is one way of doing that. So that's where all that came from. Long answer to a short question. And that kind of leads into another group of questions several people have asked, who seem to be just starting and sort of wondering, when I felt ready to go out and offer professional services, and when is the right moment when are you ready to go out there? And I basically say, well, don't wait for that, because you'll never feel that. I think there's always room for improvement, and so if you want to wait until you feel super confident, then you're never going to do anything, because the confidence, and I think I did a video about that, like the confidence actually comes afterwards. So I think you just need to accept that you're going to go out there and feel a bit like, oh shit, like a bit shaky. I don't know, Daphne, what's your experience like, the first big order or whatever? Like, I don't think anybody feels 100% confident that, oh yeah, that's going to be cruising and you know exactly how to do it. And yeah, I think the only thing is you need to be okay with not knowing and not care. And if it gets screwed up, then it gets screwed up. But you can't, if you want to do it, you can't wait until you feel ready, because you probably never will. And I mean, there are obviously things that you can do. So it's, I don't know, I've had somebody asking, I can't remember even whether it wasn't for this particular event, but you know, I've been sewing for 6 months and I want to go out and start a business. And I'm like, ooh, you know, so I guess you would want to have a bit of a, you know, technical basis. You want to know that you can do some stuff. Like if you've never sewn in a zipper or something, I don't think it would occur to me to offer, you know, to charge somebody, you know, for the service. So what level of skill you feel is enough depends also on what you're planning on offering, you know, because I think if you make pillowcases, you know, with your name embroidered in it, you know, you can happily find somebody to pay for that, and you don't need an awful lot of skill, you know. So if you want to do wedding dresses, then, you know, I think you'd want to be super advanced in your skills, you know, and have beautiful finishing techniques and perfect fit, because nobody wants a dodgy dress on their wedding day. So I think it also depends on a bit on what you're planning on offering. But yeah, so I mean, the thing is, I still think it's probably easier to start than a lot of other businesses, because you don't need, I always found it's such a simple service, everybody can understand it, you know. So it's like, I would sometimes thought it'd be like more difficult now with all these chain stores and then all the cheap stuff from China, and don't really think so. You need to find a niche. I don't think you can go and say, oh, well, I kind of sew anything and anything for everybody, because that makes it really difficult. for you to be fast and efficient and good enough in something in particular to really have a service that people would value. But there's so many. So I mean, I don't know now. I find it's more a matter of managing the amount of work so that it's not overwhelming. And I've dabbled in belly dance costumes, and and then there's for tango and whatever, and there's like so much, and everyone's, oh, you're sewing, why don't you do this, and why don't you do there seem to be so many opportunities, and then there's the whole alteration and the whole area for people who don't fit into standard sizes. Like if you can make a pair of trousers for somebody who has the hip a bit kind of off, she'll pay any amount of money to have, something that really fits her. So there's so many opportunities to make a business out of this. And it's a business that you can start with very little. I don't know, when I first started, I would cut on my dining table. I had a domestic sewing machine, I still have it, and a domestic overlocker and a normal iron. That's pretty much it. So I from a hobby sewing to offering it as a professional service. I didn't buy any equipment in the beginning, nothing at all. It was like when I could see that orders would be coming in, that's when I then went out and, okay, I think the first thing I bought was the circular knife cutter, the circular cutter thing for the ruffles. But, and then the industrial machines and the, in the professional ironing station. And that came, like one after the other. And then it's like everything, buy the best tools you can afford, but you don't need to go ahead. And it's not like if you want to be a dentist, you have to spend $1 million before you can actually attend the first patient. It's not like that. Like you can really start with what you've got. So from that point of view, there's all the opportunity in the world, I'd say. But there are also some challenges, because anything you've got going on, like me with the boundary setting, so that can really turn it all into a nightmare. And then, or if you have money issues, right? So, I mean, like my partner, he's not here, so otherwise he'd probably kill me. But he's the best computer repair person I've ever come across. And he never managed to make it into a business, because he has this things like he thinks he can either be a good person or charge somebody money. And so he would be forever nervous, embarrassed, and not like the idea of somebody will come and he makes an old shoebox turns into a working computer, and then people, hey, how much is it? And he'd go, and then he'd get all tongue-tied, and then he'd $20, but I reinstalled window, and then he'd almost apologize for charging them like 10% of what everybody else would charge. And so if you have some sort of limiting beliefs or some stuff going on around money, for example, then you're going to have a hard time as well, because again, like you have got nobody to hide behind. So it's always you. So if you kind of don't like conflict, it's gonna hit you in the face. So there's a lot of, I think, the challenges would be really more in the sort of personal development area. I think that's where you need to go in order to make this business or whatever else you want to do work. So because the technical stuff, that's sort of like, there were some people who would be asking, how I want to improve my sewing skills. And to that, I'd say these days we have it so easy. When I started as a kid, like I'd hassle my grandma, and and it'd be really difficult to find information. And now it's like, whatever you want to do, just ask Google, So type in Google, and there'll be like, go to YouTube, and if it's just a particular technique, if it's something a little bit more, a longer process, I really like Craftsy online courses, like they're brilliant. I've taken quite a few of them. And and no matter whether you're starting or whether you're advanced, like it's really easy. You don't really need anybody to teach you these days. If you have an internet connection, it's really easy to learn whatever you need to learn. And that's not really, I don't think, that's just something you can learn, And then, somebody asked about pattern drafting. So there's kind of a number of sort of more technical questions, and pattern drafting came up a number of times. And so I started pattern drafting like really, really early, because I always found I got into sewing for myself because I could never ever find something that would fit. Because, hi Victoria, hello, nice to see you. I can see you. Can you see us, Victoria? I don't know. She's moving a bit hesitant still. Well, we'll leave her in peace for now. Yeah, so I started drafting my own patterns. Like, that came up for me like really early. I started sewing, and then looking for commercial patterns I found like really frustrating, because first you have to find something that is similar to what I want to do, and then I have the same fitting issues that I have when I buy something, you know, ready made. So I thought, no, I want to make my own pattern. And I asked for recommendations, and the first recommendation was the metric pattern cutting, and I got the ladies and men's version, and I found, oh, that was just following instructions really. You know, you want to draft a skirt block, and then, you know, take these measurements, and from point A to point B, it's a quarter of the waist minus this, and you just keep following the pattern, the instructions, and yeah. So basically, it's pretty much that. And then I kind of came across a different. I mean, there's several different approaches and different methods, really. But the basic idea is always the same. And I like the Helen Armstrong one. That's the one that I find gives the nicest fit. So I kind of use that as a basis. And so yeah, it's pretty much choosing one and follow the instructions, and then experiment, really. And the Valentina pattern making software is really interesting in that context, because it sort of follows the workflow is exactly the same as you take the book, and you kind of, you know, get your points and your lines and this and that, and you develop your pattern, and you do that online. So that's kind of a if you want to do it as using software, I'm really quite keen to get more into that particular one. But it's, again, like these days, there's loads of books around, and it's relatively easy to just sort of pick one and follow the instructions, and then have a play and have a go and see how to best go about it.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Oh,
Victoria, nice to see you.
Hey, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure you could hear or see me, so I'm sorry I was looking crazy. So sorry.
No, you weren't.
I'm sorry. I was.
Oh, you weren't looking crazy at all.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I just didn't. Yeah, I want to explain my weird face. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're such a cracker. Nice to have you here. I was just well, as expected, it's not a huge group, because I sort of got the feeling that people are getting all a bit kind of confused about how to access and whatever. And I've had several people who sort of said, well, yeah, I'm kind of registering, but I already know that I can't make it. So I'm sort of just going through the questions that people have sent. And,
okay.
And then we have time to talk amongst us, because I don't want to start there, because I know once we start talking, there's a good chance we never get to the questions people have sent. So I want to kind of go over that. I'm
sorry, I do have to tip out at 2. I have a client appointment, so it's no worries. I just wanted to, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
No, that's cool. Yeah, there was somebody asking about wanted to know how to sew princess seam gowns. And I've got a whole video series on that. So I'm gonna post that somewhere, like probably in the group. And so I've got videos to sort of say, okay, now how to actually do that, and how to I mean, I'm 90% of the costume, or I'd say 95% of the costumes I make are princess seam things. And so I've tried probably every possible technique to do that. And I've recorded some videos to show like which technique, what works best for me. And so yeah, I'm happy to share that. So for whoever wanted to know that. And somebody was asking about ruffles, how to get sometimes, I mean, I guess that's more for the crazy flamenco dressmakers that want ruffles with a lot of volume. And there's basically a technique to get like, how you call it, like fish line sort of in there, like in the actual rolled hem. And Alicia, who's also in the group, she actually showed me how to do that, because I don't, I never knew, because I do dance costumes, and dancers don't want that. They don't want that much stiffness and fluff. And so it was actually quite funny, because I've never done it. I've only ever tried it, but yeah, I'm. Maybe I'll talk to her to see whether she'll actually do a video, or I'll put a tutorial together, because it's basically getting that fish wire there in the presser foot of the overlocker that does the rolled hem, and then it kind of ends up sort of sandwiched between, and then this gives this really nice. And it's lovely if you look for volume. It's really, really beautiful. But I'm surely not an expert on it. But I know somebody who is, so we'll find that. There was another question about how to sew boning into a high waist skirt, and I never do. I never ever do. Like, dancers would probably kill me if I have these pokey. They need basically the area of the skirt between under the bust just to the waist. It's just really fitted. It's just really, really fitted. It's not, if that's loose, it's no good. It's got to be fitted. And each dancer has sort of their own preference. Some want, like, if I can still breathe, it's too loose. And, most would say, okay, you want it fitted, and then because the underbust is wider than the waist. So the waist is, if that's fitted, this skirt doesn't go anywhere. So you can still move, you're still comfortable, but I don't do boning ever, not in the bata de cola, like never. For flamenco dance costumes, I simply don't do it, because it's not comfortable, and it restricts movement, and the dancers would probably punch me in the nose if I did. I think, Daphne, it was you who asked about time savers and tools and that kind of stuff. The biggest or the biggest thing that I find makes me more efficient is time and meters. Like, I've gotten so much faster, and Victoria, I'm pretty sure you're with me on that. Like, I've gotten so much faster over the years without really doing anything consciously. Because I remember the very first skirts that I sold, like some silly kind of wide one ruffle down the bottom practice skirts that I sold to a Japanese shop who sold Japanese flamenco shop, and they took me about, also with the domestic machines, they took me about like 4 hours to make. And I'm like, what? I look at this now, at this skirt, and what on earth was I carrying on for 4 hours? I'd probably do it in an hour now, and and I haven't really done anything, kind of. It's just, I used to watch videos where somebody would sew like pockets, jeans pocket on it, and I would just watch her and like, this woman's crazy, like the way the movements would flow, and she'd boom, boom. And like, I find myself now doing that as well, and I haven't really done anything. And groups help for that. Like, there's always, and still, and I actually imagine the learning curve, or the would flatten out over time. And I've been doing this for like 13 years now, and it's not flattening out. Like, I still, every year, I've just finished, a big group season again, and there's still always something where you think, Jesus, I did that way faster than last year. And also, like, if you have 25 dresses, that means there's 50 sleeves to set in, and sleeve number 47, all of a sudden, it's 4 a.m, you kind of, and then all of a sudden you grab it the other way around and you think, hey, that's a lot easier, so there's always still, and that's something where I also imagine it be flatten out a bit, and it doesn't. There's always still something where it's like all of a sudden, usually by accident, you kind of grab something the other way around, or you forget something and then you have you try a different sequence, and then, hey, that's a lot easier. And so that's basically the main way to get more efficient is that. It's just like churning out costumes or dresses or whatever you make. And then there are some tools. I don't know whether you've seen, I've got a PDF where I've got like my favorite tools. And there was the circular cutter, and Sally, who's in the group, she goes, oh, I bought that. That saves hours. If you make ruffles, that saves hours. You know, Sally was saying, oh yeah, I use scissors and these little rotary cutters. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And, you know, the blade doesn't last. And like basically cutting the ruffles would take 2 hours. And then if you have one of those electric circular cutters, it takes like 10 minutes or less, you know. And so you can cut 2 hours out of the making of a garment. And there are a couple of tools there that, you know, like the industrial machines, that I noticed that when I sometimes need the domestic one, and I kind of keep pushing the pedal because like I'm kind of keep punching the accelerator because I'm like, that's when you kind of notice how you're getting used to the industrial machines, which just goes really fast. And then like, you know, a good iron, that helps a lot as well. You know, when you don't fiddle around with that, when you just kind of have a bit of steam and, you know, and it's pressed beautifully and you don't have to muck around. So I'll share that document as well. Like I've got a document where I've got like my favorite tools, and so it's pretty much none of them are like totally necessary the way you'd say, well, you can't do anything without those, but they do make life a lot easier and a lot quicker. So you know, when you're at the stage when you think, yeah, orders are coming in, then definitely there's a few of those that I would start buying. And Victoria's question was really interesting. How about, you know, doing the group thing? You know, how because I loved it when I saw that question, because that's really funny, because I've changed my process like an awful lot over the years. I used to create a new pattern for each dancer, and I used the Wild Ginger boutique pattern making software, which gave me a base. So I kind of put in the measurements of the client, and then you can sort of select, okay, like a dress or whatever, and then you can select certain options, and that gave me a base pattern. You know, like it was a princess seam pattern already, but then there were also always certain adjustments that I made. You know, I would never use it as is, and so I would do that for each client, and then I would print out the pages and, you know, sticky tape them together and cut out the pattern and use that. And it was and I was actually sort of I was used to it. I was quite okay. It was like way more efficient than doing it by hand. But it took a long time. It took by, I don't know, about an hour to prepare, hour and a half to prepare the pattern for somebody. And then you have the days when you really need to get that pattern out and the printer runs out of toner, or you run out of sticky tape, and you know, so that was kind of really a bit painful. And it was about around the time when I started the flamenco dressmaking website and started to look at offering patterns in sort of standard sizes. So I was kind of, the way the grading, you know, it was just not made for that. And that's when I started to look at pattern making software again, and then I found, you know, the solution that I'm using now and have now. And I first printed out like the 3 most common sizes. And then all of a sudden I found myself, I've never made a custom pattern again. I'm basically using these standard size patterns I have now, and basically do the adjustments that I used to do on screen, and then I do them sort of on the fly. And I've got a video, it's a bit long, but I've got a video where I actually walk through the whole process, that what I do and which measurements I look at and why, and like all the outfits, like you see the big groups, like they're all made like that, and they're all made from like 2 or 3 patterns that I've got, like the 2-3 sizes that are most common. There's like the really tiny one, there's sort of the middle one, and then there's the larger one. They're sort of kind of like me, and And between those three, I cover like 90% of the dancers. And then I have one pattern for girls that are sort of not really women yet, but not really girls anymore either. And then there's one pattern for kids, basically. And I do the same sort of thing. There's, certain measurements that I double check and adjust. And like my partner, he sometimes watches me dress and he said, "You've got the pattern there, but you cut kind of somewhere else." and I find that like hugely efficient. And I only have a pattern for somebody, a personalized pattern, if they're kind of really off these standard sizes. And my standard sizes come from my client database. And because when I looked at standard sizes, that I thought that was such a mess. And which one do I go for? In the end, I thought, why would I worry about? I've got hundreds of client measurements. So I've used my own. And so most, 90% of the dancers kind of fit quite well into one of these sizes. And the 2 or 3 that are off, then I might make. And if I know that I'll do, there's basically the teacher of the school I always work for. I've got a custom pattern for her. So, but that's because I know I'm making dresses for her all the time, and she doesn't really fit all that easily into one of these sizes. And that's, all the rest of it. And that's really, really efficient. There's just like a couple of adjustments that you make, and you can sort of it doesn't even matter which pattern, but if you have one that's a bit smaller or that's a bit bigger, it doesn't really matter. And I'm more than happy to share the video to that to see how I do that and which measurements I use, and because in the end I take quite a lot of measurements, because like anything I measure, I don't have to assume. And assume is always the mother, like in IT they say, assumption is the mother of all pull-ups, basically. And so I kind of try, and people here, they know me, they think, and oh, it's that crazy German woman who takes a million measurements, but then again, as a result, I usually have one fitting. Mm-hmm. And they kind of, and I didn't even know, because apparently here sort of traditionally people work in a different way. I don't know, because I'm so like in my own little world, I have no idea what other people do, right? I've not worked really with, I've seen what clients and tell me, or sometimes, so, oh no, we had one that, there were like 5-6 fittings for like kids' dresses. I'm like, what on earth are you doing? And apparently I think they sort of start with something big, and then sort of like slowly they work themselves inwards. And so yeah, I've seen a lot of sort of jaws drop when, I come there with the thing sort of for the first fitting, and they're like, but it's done. Yeah, I don't have time to kind of hand stitch all the crap, no. And so apparently that's not the way that people here used to do it, but I find it's efficient, it's precise, and works really well. So yeah, that's pretty much the questions I had. So over to you. What was the other question you had, Victoria?
The one I issued like 10 minutes before?
I don't know.
I had another one that I was curious about. Sorry, I just posted it on your page. Let's see if I can find it. I do have a question off the top of my head though. As far as pricing, how is that? That's always like the interesting thing. How has that evolved with your business? You have such huge groups. And I don't know if because of the redundancy of this certain type of, like, because of the elements, like if somebody goes really crazy with ruffles at the bottom, like how do you, as far as with your business, do you add to that?
Yeah.
Just curious.
It's funny because I actually didn't really change prices for a long time, and still always felt I'm making more money because I would get faster and faster.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
There was part that, and then initially I would, and still do it when it's something that I haven't done, or when I'm sort of kind of something new. I religiously stop the time. I measure the time. because I know myself. It's like, especially happens when somebody's like, oh, just something simple, and something simple is really, really dangerous in that sense, that it kind of looks, oh yeah, you knock that off in a couple of hours, and then by the time this and by the time that, and so I would actually measure the time, like really stopwatch, not just sort of more or less. I would take a stopwatch and just that sort of to cover my bases towards the bottom, really.
Okay, so I messed up in my questioning initially. So do you have a base price, or do you charge by time?
No, I would initially I would measure the time to make sure I don't shoot myself in the foot, and then I would go and then I kind of sort of test out what people would bear and say, well, I know I take 4 hours for that, like as an example, I say like, well, I won't do it for less than, initially, funny that, like when I first started, it was like, okay, as long as it's not below $5, I'm happy to take that as a learning, to learn and sort of thinking, yeah, I'll get faster. And it was like sort of that sort of to kind of cover the minimum. Like if it's below that, I won't do it. So there's this kind of minimum price. And then obviously you sort of see what the market can bear, what you can go up. But like just to make sure I don't go below that, and I won't. And then I would go and say, okay, the base for the skirt part is, I don't know, let's say 40. The base for the top is this. Like if you want a collar, then it's that much more. If you want pockets, it's this much more. If you want ruffles, I kind of go by the meter more or less. But I sort of find it's still sort of the base, but it's sort of, I find it sort of simplified it a bit, because after so and so many, I kind of look at like, okay, it's got 5 ruffles up the top, and I can, it's going to be sort of 15, 20 meters, and I kind of like, I know that now. Or sometimes I just like, okay, it's just sort of flat rate, and then save the hassle of arguing over if the skirt has a bit more flare now and it's going to be half a meter more ruffles. That's just too much of a pain in the butt, really, and it's more of a flat. I mean, for clients, it sounds more like a flat rate, but below that is the kind of, I sort of know how many meters of ruffles it takes, and I know how much time it takes me to make one, and then obviously the ones that are most interesting are the ones that, like the Bata de Cola, the one with the long train, where they look really complicated. That's the nice thing. They look really complicated. Apparently there aren't many people who can make them well. So, they're the most profitable thing I do.
And, I love that, because I am kind of similar to you. So I do a lot of specialty stuff, and it does have, I found the base price method works really good, because God knows if I charge by the hour, these people be paying a ton of money, because I can't really gauge. I know some stores are super fast. I don't toot myself as being like the most ultimate fast, but I'm always very technically sound, and it's very thorough. But I do love those things that when they're a specialty item that garner or pay, that's like, those are like the gold pockets.
They're great. And or when you have people stuff that people really value, you find like really big dancers, they're the most amazing clients, because if you can make something that fits really well, where they look in the mirror, they go, hey, shit. And I've had some, like, they're almost crying. They're kind of like, this thing makes me the body that I don't think I have.
I love that.
And it's like, they're buying much more than a dress, and they're not going to haggle over the price,
Well, their confidence is tight. I had a moment like that today with a client. I live for those moments. That's like, wow. So it's the best.
Yeah. It's, and also, I mean, obviously, sort of, you kind of don't want to try and sort of rip off people, but the neighbor's cat. The neighbor's cat's kind of sometimes poking, and the 3 dogs kind of chase after. And so there's and I think what's more changed than the actual number is the attitude. I kind of, I like, it was a bit like, oh, are they going to pay that? And sort of a bit kind of on the defensive, sort of expecting people to haggle or to argue or to, and
so are you now more saucier when you present your price?
yeah, I'm like, really, I don't care. If you're not okay with it, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah,
that's, but I guess it's not easy to get that, to be that cool when you first start, when you sort of think you really do need that client to pay the bills the end of the month, then I think it's not as easy to be as cool about it than when you think, well, if you don't want it, someone else will, and also to have the patience then, because I've had it with groups where they'd go, they kind of didn't even say it, but then like one year they wouldn't order anything, and then the year after they'd go, oh yeah, kind of, the mothers. It happens often with kids stuff when I can understand their point of view. If you have, you imagine your daughter. She goes and she gets the thing and says, oh, I want to do flamenco dancing, and you take her to the class. They've got the end of class performance, and now you're told you're supposed to spend $200 on a dress. Where you think, well, you don't know whether she still want to dance next year. And she's going to be growing out of it anyway. So obviously you have an interest in that thing to be as cheap as possible. And so I can see the parents' point, but then, I would always suggest then, okay, why don't you go for something simpler, But then they do want the fancy dress, they just don't want to pay for it. And I think, well, that's where I don't really agree with it, because I understand that you don't want to spend, whatever amount on the dress, but I don't really want to be the one paying for it. And so sometimes they will then sort of go away. And then so many times they've come back and they say, oh, that was such a nightmare, and the dresses are horrible and they weren't ready in time, and some have more ruffles than others. And, so it's basically a learning experience for everybody, because they will then be the best clients, because when they thought this could be done cheaper, then they kind of try and pressure you. But once they know what happens, then they come back and then they're good clients, because then, they've been there. And it's usually, I think, a good experience for the other dressmaker as well, because they will then also see what happens, when you don't charge enough, and you're not buying slack. It's not that people are overlooking little faults. On the contrary, I've really literally have the experience that the less you charge, the more of a pain in the ass people are.
Yeah. The pay is a filter.
Yeah,
that can tell you a lot. You're absolutely right. You filter through your clientele oftentimes what you charge. If people really value you, they don't have a problem. I love my clients that come in and they're like, yeah, what's my bill? It's not even a question of what are you going to charge me. It's just, okay, how much do I owe you? Those are the. But then I had one like today. I can understand she bought a dress for $75. I alter stuff. She didn't want to pump $50 into getting it hemmed.
Yeah.
That's completely her right. But I was not going to cut my hemming price down. I'm already super reasonable. But then she loved me so much. She's like, I'm going to bring my other dress to you. So I was like, okay, cool. So you're right. Is the part where you do have to kind of hold your ground. Yeah. It's amazing how much diplomacy and negotiation it goes into the business of sewing. I really like that, because people are counting on you to be very knowledgeable, but also they can discern your skill and your expertise, like in all of it. And you oftentimes have to convince them because they don't understand, and be patient and stuff. So you're right. It takes a moment to get to that point. I still have moments where I'm quoting the price and I'm kind of like, sometimes people get a little weird, but it is what it is. I mean, what the best you got to pay, so.
And I think what really helps is to understand that it's not personal.
Oh, no.
That's because I think with anything sort of creative, anything you make with your hands, if somebody questions the price, it's really easy to go down that route of they don't value me, that to take it sort of personally. They kind of don't respect me, or they don't value my work, and what am I worth? And it's easy to go that way, and as soon as if you remember that all that means is they can't see the value for them.
Yeah.
That's all that is. If somebody says it's too expensive, and then it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. And to trust that, if that client doesn't want it, there will be another one. You may need a client to pay the bills, but you don't need that one. So.
Yeah. And I created a course like you. I did it on the sewing consult, because I believe like creating structure in your process is so important, and it weeds out all the problems. I think most artists will jump in and they'll get so excited about doing something, and they forget that there's all this logistics. I mean, just even explaining all that stuff to them and just talking about the process. And I loved, my first question is, do you have a budget that I could be mindful of? That way it's showing them I'm taking into consideration what's going on with them, and then we can process. And then they'll ask what my costs are, and then once I give it, if there's a contradiction, then we see where we can kind of do a meetup. If it's not possible, but my job is to present options and help them get what they want, at the same time not rob me of my skills.
I love that. What's your budget? That's fantastic. That's a really, really helpful question, because it just makes sure that there are no sort of big surprises at the end. I kind of don't often even get that like I get a lot of inquiries like via email or something, or Facebook, where like it's funny, like especially Spanish people are really funny. They go, how much is it? And I'm like, hola, hello, So they kind of, that's all they're asking, so so but most people who actually order something don't ask. Because the thing is, they also usually come via somebody else, and I'm pretty sure they talk about it, so they basically know more or less what it's going to be. So there's never, with sort of local people who come through word of mouth, there's never a question. And usually it's just like, what are we going to do? And then we get all excited, and price is kind of, some will then want sort of an estimate, sort of more or less what it's going to be. But most people kind of go ahead without even asking. But, people who contact you from the outside obviously will want to know, and that's definitely one thing that I'm going to address in the new website, because I'm thinking I used to go like, what kind of, it's the only thing, but then I kind of observed myself looking at other websites, like I kind of go for email marketing service, right, for example, and then there's sort of different options. The first thing I go is to price, because I don't want to get excited about something that I then don't, it's like I don't want to spend $200 a month for an email marketing service, so I don't want to get excited. I think, that's probably what people are going through as well. They want to get, a price. I don't want to get excited if then I can't have it. And I often send people away, really. Like if somebody comes and says, I want a white ruffly shirt, then I go, well, why don't you go have a look in this and this and this shop first? Because they're kind of in fashion, and you'll definitely get it cheaper there. And then if you can't find what you're looking for, then you come back and then we'll do something. Because it's the same sort of thing again, like you don't want them to have in the back of their head, I could get that a lot cheaper in the shop. So I kind of want this, and groups always come back, no matter how simple the thing is in the end, because even if it's in fashion, even if it's simple, to find a white ruffly top for 10 people in 10 all different sizes is virtually impossible. So, but it's usually important that they go and try first, because otherwise they have in the back of their mind, we could have just bought that thing. So to sort of send them away is often actually really, really helpful. I
like to do that too. I think it's ultimately about customer service, giving the best. It's really not even about me. I always say payment is icing on the cake. I had a client who's in a sorority contact me, like 15 of the group members wanted custom tailored jackets. Same deal. It actually would make more sense to just get a black blazer and then I can customize it. So it's so really great that we came to that consensus, because it really is about them. I don't, everybody has something going on in their personal lives. I don't even think twice when people want what they want for their price. I know I'm a hunter. I mean, it's the reason I sew. I know I don't want to pay certain things, so I don't fault people for that. I just want to provide them what they want again, and at the same time be fairly compensated, you know, for my artistry.
Exactly. And I find people really appreciate that.
They do.
You know, because if I go and say, well, you know, why don't you go there? Because I've seen some really cute blouses really cheaply there. She'll be back next time with something else, because then she trusts you.
They always come back.
You're not out there to, you know, basically.
Excuse me for 1 second. My client is calling. I'm sorry.
Okay. Sorry, Daphne, you've been all quiet. We sort of talked all over you.
Okay, something that I would like to ask. It's about fabric policy you have. Do you choose the fabrics, or you let the client make the choices?
Both. I do both. And both have sort of advantages and disadvantages. I've got a big fat book of samples. There's a fabric supplier here in Sevilla who I work really closely with. And I mean, there's several, but there's one that I particularly like because they've got a good website. And so if somebody contacts me from outside of Granada, who I don't personally meet, then it's easy for me to just say, you know, to choose fabrics, go there. And, you know, for the type of fabric, for what you want, the type of fabric is this. So you look for this name and I can send them straight there. And then you can choose the prints and the colors and whatever. And then I can order it and it comes straight to me and it's easy.
But you sort of choose the type of fabric that is suitable for the costume. You don't let them buy the cheapest they can find, because I have this problem.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah.
Try to find a cheaper fabric, because the costumes take a lot of fabric. But then the result is not the same, and it's not something I think that makes my work look.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I kind of I don't know, I remember when I first started, most people would actually bring the fabric. And local dancers, I didn't really have much of that problem where they bring some really shoddy fabric. But I know I've spoken to someone in Australia who said, oh God, last year I really fell for it. People kind of bought this really cheap fabric and it was a nightmare to work with. And then the result, it just doesn't look the same. And I don't really want my name associated with that. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if somebody, and I remember one dress for a Russian girl, she came with some really sort of cheap, shoddy chiffon kind of stuff. It was really nice. The polka dots, the print was really pretty. That's why she got it. And not so much to save money. It was just she liked the colors and didn't really understand much about, the quality of the fabric. And I was really struggling with that thing. But yeah, she was happy in the end, and it actually looks really great on a photo. But so I personally haven't had an awful lot of problem with that, because also here, if people go and buy fabric here, if it's sort of flamenco style fabric, it'll usually be the one that's used. Other types of fabric don't tend to come in polka dots or the type of prints that flamenco dancers like. So I actually don't really get that an awful lot. But I mean, if a client comes with a fabric where you think, could you say that, look, this fabric is going to look horrible? Not even necessarily I don't want to work with it because it's, I'm going to, but basically explain them that this hasn't got the drape it needs. And, or it's probably going to wrinkle, or it's going to be probably going to, if it's some rayon or whatever, and it's going to be likely to shrink or to lose color, or basically explain to her that the quality isn't worth her while, to spend the money on the costume for something that isn't going to last and isn't going to look good. Basically talk her out of it, but in the sense of like it'd be money badly spent on her side, you know, if you use that fabric.
I had a recent experience actually when I was trying to expand to other dance costumes, and I tried to do a paso doble skirt. So it was the first time I was doing the specific pattern, and the dancer wanted a very cheap fabric. It's like a lining. I explained that it wasn't going to be the same with the one that she wanted to look. But she insisted, and we did it. It came out like a Halloween costume. It was
yeah.
And she said, "Oh no, it's not what I wanted. I don't want it, etc." But that made me decide to stick to what I know, not to experiment on other types of costumes. It this experience discouraged me from, you know, going somewhere else. And I think about it. I haven't decided if it was my mistake or if it was her mistake for insisting about the fabric, or it was both of our mistake.
I don't know. For me, it like sounds it's like, yep, a learning experience. You know, so you know, like next time you see that fabric, you know you're not gonna. That's one of my dogs saying hello. Because I mean, I can see how. Yeah, I mean, I've had situations like that where I say, well, no, like, no, this is, but yes, I want it, and I think I've just been lucky that in the end it was like, yeah, nobody then said, oh well, but now it's not. Yes, I've had it. Yes, I've had it. I've had it. Yes. Yes, I've had it. And so I don't know. It's just, it's hard to totally avoid it, you know, because sometimes, most of the time, people won't insist. And if they insist, then, you know, if they really understand that it's now because I mean, I don't know, you could even make her sign something to say like, it's your responsibility. Like, I told you, you know, but still that won't prevent her from, you know, quietly accusing you in the end, you know? So it's like, I don't know. Victoria, what do you think?
I think I just caught part. Sorry, I keep looking for a client, but it sounds like it's a situation where a disclaimer needs to be made. So like I made a disclaimer, like you can't really predict the outcome of something, and you just want to give them the heads up about it. Usually in that case, I'll create a disclaimer, and oftentimes I'll make that part of the stipulation of the contract. And I usually haven't had to do it in writing. It's usually kind of a verbal thing, but if I'm with someone that I can kind of since their personality is a little more of a firecracker, which is very rare for me, then I would probably do it in writing and get them to sign off saying that I do realize that this is a risk, and by taking this risk, I assume the responsibilities of the outcome. Yeah. Kind of leave that.
I've never put something in writing, but I've said to clients that like somebody asked for like one of those caps, like these with the English style, you know, like and yeah, it was basically a dancer client of mine. She wanted me to make shirts for her boyfriend or whatever, and so like polka dot shirts, you know, like really quite funny. And then all of a sudden he had the idea that he wanted like a matching hat for it. And I'm like, I've never, and I go, well, how do you want it? Like, draw me the thing so that and he gave me a name for it, and I'd never heard the name before. And so I said, well, draw it. And he basically draws an oval like an egg. And I'm thinking, well, I don't think that's the thing. And then fortunately, we had like internet connections, so he found me a picture, and I'm like, look, I've seen these things before. I have not the slightest clue how to make one. All I can offer you is that I'll go away and see whether I can find something, you know, like if I can figure out how to make it, I'll do it, but I can't promise you anything, you know. And so, well then, but it is a bit like, yeah, I'm quite happy because I kind of like these things and they're kind of really cute. And so I think, well, I've got one now, like the first, like the first sort of, you know, experiment I did for me to see whether that was something that, you know, or whether I go to him and say, look, I didn't find anything, I can't do it. And yeah, so
I love those moments. That's actually when I grow the most, when I get those kind of out of the border.
Yeah, and it's more like a sort of I'm kind of happy to take that to if he in the end had said I don't want it, you know, I would have said, yeah, okay, you know, I'll take, like, that was kind of this way I've learned how to do these things, you know, and I'm kind of happy to sort of, if I'm interested in the thing, if I'm thinking, yeah, you know, like in your case, Daphne, now, if you think, well, yeah, I'm kind of, there's this huge Paso Doble group and I'm really kind of interested in getting in there, you know, then you may think, well, okay, she's a pain in the butt. She's probably on my blacklist. Next time you want something, I'm busy. But, you know, but to say, well, okay, I'll take it as a learning experience. And now you know for sure that next time somebody comes with that sort of fabric, you know for sure you're not going to let her insist. If she wants to insist, then she can go and do it herself, you know, because you're not going to touch that fabric for that kind of outfit anymore. So, you know, if you think the type of garment could be of interest, then it would be, well, think, okay, yeah, now you've learned something and you now know for sure. You know, I've done belly dance costumes that weren't profitable at all, you know, and that was sort of the learning experience. That's just not my thing, you know, so I'm no longer tempted. And so, but yeah, it's cost me a couple of totally not profitable orders, you know, to learn that. And so yeah, I wouldn't take it as a discouragement. I would take it as a lesson, and to say, yeah, okay, now you know for sure that this material doesn't work, you know, and next time you'll be safe from, like, nobody's going to ever talk you into that one again. You know, so.
Okay. One of the funniest things, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know if Daphne was going to say something.
No.
Okay, it's nice talking to you, Daphne. Okay. One of the funniest things I found, I think you and I had this conversation, Anka, is, and I also, it's part of my sewing consult course. It was like a bonus thing. I did like the most common 12 personality types. Oh. So a lot of the battle between us and interacting with other, by the way, I'll just send that to you, but you know, if you're curious. But part of the battle interacting with people is oftentimes finding out where we're deficit in. Like, so if you have the type of personality where you want to please, if you get someone that has a stronger personality, it's easier for them to kind of like strong arm you into something.
Yes, that's what happened to me. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It is so about managing your own emotions and then being able to kind of understand where they're coming from in their angle. Because just as bad as the overly dominant client is the very under dominant client, like the client that doesn't even know what they want, and you're like, well, do you want, and they're like, well, I don't know, and so you kind of got to tease things out. So there's always this dance you do, but you have to change it with your different partners. So yeah. It's kind of, but I won't talk too much. My client just showed up, so I don't want to leave, but I gotta go do work. So it was nice talking with you.
Yeah, it was lovely for you. I'm glad you made some time and dropped in. That was wonderful.
Thank you for having me. Always. Y'all have a good day, and I'll watch the replay for sure.
Okay.
Bye. Nice meeting you, Daphne.
Bye.
Bye.
It's funny. It just occurred to me. We'll have to get Victoria to share her course, but the differentiation I find with my clients is there's two, like I see some of the two elements that come in that really make the difference or determine what kind of clients it is. It's like how much imagination they have and how able or unable they are to make a decision. because I have clients that that we go through the sample book of fabrics, for example, right? And then she'll go, oh, what do you think? A dress? Yeah, and we're done. Like she sees a tiny scrap of fabric and she's got the dress in her mind, and I'm like that, and I'm sure you are like that, like people who do that, we tend to be like that. You walk through a fabric shop and we go, oh, look at this, and look, because in your eye, you already see all the stuff you could do with it. And I find a lot of people don't have that, and some are quite extreme. Some are actually, they've got the thing on and they still can't, like you make like let's say a dress, with long sleeves because you're not quite sure yet what she wants. And then, do we do 3/4 sleeves? And she goes, I don't know. And I'm like, for God's sake, you've got the thing on, So it's like, you have to literally pin up the sleeve, because until she actually sees it, she can't imagine it. So these are people where, they really have to see it. And then there's the other ones, and then the worst combination is if it's somebody with no imagination and can't make a decision, like they're really quite a hard work, because then there's a lot of people who, I get it a lot that people send me photos, and I often encourage it because I don't know, quite often, I don't know whether, surely dancers often don't express themselves well with words. I used to get upset about it, and then I think, well, if you work good with words, you'd be a writer, not a dancer. So that's okay. Find me, draw it, or find me a photo or several photos of stuff you like, so I get a bit of a feel for, for your taste and what you're looking for. And often people send a photo and say, I want that. And then they want it like, but the little lace goes up there. And I'm like, who cares? Like, you will use that as an inspiration to then, get a bit of a feel for what they want. But then they kind of want you to stick to exactly the number, how many ruffles. And then the biggest problem is if the photo isn't big enough, that you can't see it well enough. And then you're like, who cares? If you want a ruffle more or one less, I mean, whatever. And they get really like, and I've actually asked people, so why does it matter? Yeah, and they go, I don't want to get it wrong. I go, what do you mean get it wrong? What's there to get wrong? Like the only criteria is really, do you like it or don't you? And people don't trust their own judgment. They're not sure. And then they're worried that it's going to look horrible and whatever. And then, and then you have people who kind of can't decide, like this or maybe the other one. And they just like, yeah, so once you know that they can't, that it takes them, that it's really difficult for them to make a decision, you just kind of relax into it because it's going to take twice the time. And I used to get really frustrated, it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, just get, like whatever, like, and they'd go and they'd really lose sleep over the color of the ruffle finish, and you think nobody sees that anyway. Nobody who sees you dance will think, oh, what a lousy dancer, she's got the ruffles finished off in red, like, but there are people who kind of go, and it's really, yeah, again, really helpful to know that they don't do that to waste your time, or it's, and some decide really quickly, and they're usually the ones who don't, yeah, the ones with imagination and quick decision, like they're really like fast, easy clients, and the one less imagination they have, and like your Paso Doble client sounds a bit like that, because if she can imagine what that would look like when the material doesn't drape well or doesn't, if she had the imagination for it, then, she wouldn't then in the end, oh, this isn't what I wanted, because she kind of can't see it. So it's just like really helpful to know, yeah, just sort of different ways of going about it, and some take more time than others.
It is a lack of imagination and also an inexperience with fabrics.
Oh, yes.
Not many clients know that there are so many fabrics that others are suitable and others aren't. And about indecisive clients, I think I had some experience some relative experience. Fortunately, they were in groups, so somebody else had the imagination and the vision of, for the whole group. But it was very interesting to see one of them sitting in front of the mirror for about half an hour, just trying to decide if the sketch was long enough or not. So, and she was wondering if I should shorten it about 2 centimeters. And I said, okay, it's about only 2 centimeters. Never mind. Wear it, and then we will adjust it if you can't. If you can't dance, all right. But no, I'm not sure. I think. Yes, it's about making quick decisions. It's about being confident.
Yeah, and some people will trust you, and some people won't. You know, because some people may not have imagination and may find it difficult, and they go, oh, you know, what do you think? And then I say, well, I would do this and this. Okay, and they're really relieved that you take that off them, you know. But then there are others who still insist to control it all, you know. And I've got a few like that. I mean, you know, a couple of those. And they like, it just takes a long time, you know. And then finally, when they get to the point that they make a decision, then you still have to be, there's one client in particular where I'm kind of really hesitant to even, you know, like cut the neckline, for example. And I usually finish that first, you know, because like, if it's too wide open, we have a problem anyway. And then you can always open it out more. And with her, I'm kind of like really hesitant because it takes a long time for her to make a decision. And even then, I go and she finally decided, and then I go away, and then maybe at night I get a message, oh, actually I was thinking, and maybe, you know, and then so yeah, and well, it's really only the one who's really extreme now, but and I think it's also, it's interesting to watch the kind of clients who, you know, who come to work with you, and after a while you get a real feel for like your favorite clients and how they are, you know. And I think almost once you're conscious of it, I don't know, for some reason there seem to be more of those coming in.
I think my best clients are the ones that know a bit about sewing.
Yes.
That understand the work.
Yes.
And the time, and what does it take for me to make certain alterations. So I was thinking about giving out some sewing lessons to dancers that probably would like to see how it is to make their own costume. Part of it, it would help me, I think, because they would understand a bit about my work.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's a good idea anyway to.
Very interested.
It's something that I actually never thought of in the beginning. It was just the whole objective was to get enough sewing work to, you know, to actually, you know, make a living doing this. And then after a while, I found that it's actually ties me down a lot, you know, and so I think it's not a bad idea to even start sort of contemplating some ideas of sort of other, most likely related streams of income, you know, like your classes, for example. Because, and then imagine like the I guess it's more extreme if the sewing income is the only income in the household, right? So, okay, if there's somebody else bringing money in, and if you kind of, I don't know, you fall down and you break your finger and you can't sew, you know, if that doesn't mean you're hungry, then it's not that critical. But in my case, you know, it's always been the source of income, right? And if I can't sew, then I have a real big problem. And so that's why sort of a few years ago was like, okay, you know, we have to look at some other ways of, you know, and also like the idea you can only make money when you're at the sewing machines. You know, so my parents live in Germany, so I can't, you know, there was like always, if mum rings and says, well, something happens, I can't, well, I can go over, but then not only do I have double expenses, but then I also, as soon as I'm away from the machines, I don't make any money. You know, so that's something that I would, looking back, always recommend to consider fairly early on. I mean, it's not something where I say, oh, you have to get another job or something, but just something to think about, you know. So what and that's why it just sort of, I remembered when you mentioned the classes, you know, because that could be something that could be exactly that, you know, sort of just something else related that takes the weight off, you know, the sewing. Because not only, because once you sort of got enough momentum that there's always enough client work, that it's not about am I going to have enough clients, but it's like, yeah, maybe for some reason you don't want to, or you can't sew, you know. So yeah, the classes would be probably quite interesting from that point of view as well.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I would have to find the time to organize it though.
Yeah, and it's one of those you can just sort of, if it comes up in a conversation with somebody, you know, you just offer it and then see how it develops. You know, give some classes and then you kind of get a feeling for what people want to know and how to, and that kind of sort of can develop over time. But it's probably a good idea. I actually find that someone said, like, oh, you know, like they're the worst, you know, people who think they can do it better than you. And I don't know, I've got, my experience is more like yours, you know, like people who sew, they appreciate more what you do. Yeah, I find the ones who can't even sew on a button, that's, oh, you know, it's not such a big deal. It's, I had one, like, I've got this group where they asked me to do like Batas de Cola, and it's a whole group for, you know, they do some career, kind of flamenco dancer career course, and Bata de Cola is one of the things they have to do. And so I did the Batas de Cola how they wanted them, and then they go for the first exam to Madrid, and the exam panel says something like, these batas aren't heavy enough, you know, they're not fluffy enough. And so everybody thought, well, they could, if there are certain specifications for the bata, they could have said that in the beginning, but well, they haven't. And so now it's a matter of actually putting more ruffles onto these batas. And I'm like, oh, you know, yeah, nightmare kind of job. So it turns out in the end, it's not actually that bad, but you know, the dancers don't know that. And so now we're like, just a couple of weeks ago when, you know, things for the end of course was all coming to an end, and, you know, like this and that and loads of stuff to do. And one of the girls, oh, and I also need the ruffles on the bata. And I'm like, oh, now you're coming on with that. Like, you know, I've got this, I had these ruffles sitting there for weeks, you know, like, so I like now when we're like a week before the performance, now it occurs to you to, you know, and she goes, yeah, but it's only a few ruffles. And I'm like, well, if it's just a few ruffles, why don't you do it? You know? And she gets all kind of, well, I don't sew. I just dance, you know, like, so I don't know, you know, how am I supposed to know? And I said to her the other day when she actually brought it, and he said, you know, it's a bit like if I say to you, oh, by the way, you need to rehearse another dance for the performance on Saturday. And if you go like, oh, and I'm like, it's just a bit of footwork, won't be that bad. I'm not dancing, I'm just sewing, you know, like to really, and you could really see how, you know, like she sort of got it. But yeah, so people who don't know anything will sort of let stuff like that out. You know, somebody who's done some sewing would never say that. they tend to appreciate a lot more what you do, definitely. Yeah. Alrighty, if you're okay for now.
So I think you have cleared out many questions I had, and I think it was very helpful.
That's great.
Talk to you and Victoria.
I mean, if something else comes up, I mean, feel free to post it or send me a message privately or whatever. So.
Okay. So you have been very helpful and inspiring for me here in Athens.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That was the idea. And I think it was actually in the end, sort of with less people, it's nice, you know, like I think if it's more people, it's great. But if it's just like a small, you know, sort of more intimate, it's like really nice as well.
Yes. Okay. I hope I will talk to you again soon.
Yeah, whenever. I'm here. Manic season's over. I've got a life again, so I'm here. Well, thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon again. And thanks for everybody who's watching the recording. I'm going to turn that off now. And I'll talk to you soon again. Bye for now.